Okay, thanks a lot. Everybody sit down and get a drink. I thought Tina was terrific, I must say. David, thank you so much. I have so many stories about the Thompson family. Which one shall I tell you? I mean, actually, he was just a kid when I first saw him, coming in with his lovely Kenneth Thompson, his father, who was one of the most gentle, nicest, kindest people you could ever meet, because I owe my start in journalism, this wonderful thing which unites us all, to Roy Thompson. What a character. I mean, Roy was so... People said, where did they get the values of the paper? Where did they get the values from? They didn't get them from me. They didn't even get them from the chairman. They got from them from the massive integrity of Roy Thompson. Roy Thompson was so straightforward, so honest, so almost careless. When the Times newspapers were negotiating to buy Al-Haram, the leading Egyptian newspaper, Roy was negotiating with Colonel Nasser. Very difficult stage of the negotiation. And Roy said, "You're one cunning old Jew." Which Nasser kind of laughed at, because it was so obviously true to Roy's character, and of course that was the bedrock. Any journalism has to have a wall against which they can put their back when they're taking risks. To the people at Spotlight will testify, and most of you who've had experience of investigative journalism, you have to have a back to a wall, not necessarily facing a firing squad, but feeling some kind of confidence in what's going to happen. And just looking back on thalidomide, it really, one thing which people don't understand, I get plaudits for courage. You don't need courage. When you saw those kids that I saw, 7 and 8, without legs and arms, and struggling, the parents, people talk about the kids the whole time, the parents devastated. Marriages broke up. Husbands couldn't say, "Don't bring that monster home." And the parents, you think, anybody, any sentient person, and certainly everybody in this room, would react as I did, to say, we can't let this stand. And I never gave a thought about the costs I was imposing on the Thompson family from the legal struggles. I'll never forget the advertising director calling me up, and he said, "Harry, the chairman tells me you're going to start a campaign against Distillers, the whiskey company." I said, "Yes." He said, "I have to tell you, they spend £60,000 a year with the Sunday Times. It shan't stop you, and it shouldn't." I thought that was marvelous from the advertising director, egging us on. But just one brief, just another glimpse of what kind of person Roy Thompson was, which is important to remember, that most of us are our successors to people who are around us, the teams, the backers. I'd exposed the spy Philby. When I say I'd exposed him, I wasn't James Bond. I was a guy in an office sending other people to do the work. One of whom went into a hotel in Moscow to meet Philby, who opened up his attaché case with a pistol. Said, "You won't get far if you try any funny business." So I'm glad it wasn't me who was there. But anyway, the point is this, that the Philby, the spy, offered me his memoir. We had a correspondence of a certain kind. We got nothing in exposing the spy from him. So I was determined not to publish the memoir, because it would look as though we'd just been fed a load of garbage by a Soviet spy. However, Gordon Brown, you may not remember Gordon Brown. He was could have been Prime Minister if he'd not had so many experiences of being extremely tired as a newt. And Gordon Brown was at dinner one night with Roy Thompson was there, and all the city people were there. And and Gordon, whom I got to know quite well, Gordon Brown turned to Roy Thompson and said, "You should be ashamed of yourself. Your paper is sticking up for the Soviet Union, and your editor's a traitor." Something like that. Anyway, I got a call from my chairman and I said, "You better be in the House of Commons tomorrow because you're going to be denounced as a traitor." And he said, Roy Thompson was there. I don't know what he's going to make of it. Anyway, Gordon Brown did not get up and denounce me because he'd been drunk the night before, and the Prime Minister had reprimanded him and he'd been booted down. And when Roy Thompson was asked what he thought about the charges, you know, he had a single word: bunk, he said, bunk. And that was great. But what I want to come back to the beginning. When I was asked to come here, I was so delighted because, as you know, David Walmsley and the Globe and Mail had taken thalidomide to an amazing extent for the benefit of Canadian victims. I mean, Stephen Rain, whose father I knew when I was doing thalidomide, came in to see me, and he said, "Look at these Canadian victims, nothing's being done about them. I wonder how I can get publicity." I said, "Well, I could write a letter to the Globe and Mail." I was joking. I said, "I can call up the Globe and Mail." And I did. But the point is, I thought, when's he going to do something? I expected something immediately. I didn't get it. What I got was the best single piece of expose journalism I've ever seen. Page after page on the front page. I felt ashamed. Looking back on my own efforts, which seemed so puny, the headlines I wrote, I thought, okay, but they're nothing like what the Globe and Mail did. So congratulations, David Walmsley, and for the backing that you got for that. Look, when I came tonight, I thought, having come fresh from the American election, you've heard something about this, I suppose. Your name is taken in vain occasionally. Those people from the north are going to send all the Canadians south, and we're going to have an immigration problem. You know, I'm speaking for Mr. Trump now. He's seriously concerned about you lot coming over the border. I thought I must tell you about an election story. Well, this is a true election story. Dr. Strasbimus of Utrecht, that was his name, he was a character in a Beaverbrook Canadian newspaper, was speaking at a public event like this, and he suddenly reached down below and got a box of rotten eggs and started pelting the audience. And as a riot ensued, and as he was led away, he said, "I seem to have got things the wrong way round." Well, that's how I feel tonight. For me, I'm not speaking for Tina now, but for me to be honoured tonight is a singular excess of patriotism and professionalism on the part of you. And the people who have won prizes tonight, we're all part of this universal connection of values because we all know what we're trying to do with journalism, which is to speak up for the powerless, comfort the afflicted, and do something to leave the world a better place than we found it. And the one single thing I'd like to say about people who are worried about the printed press, I won't forget the story of Jean-Louis Sebrian, editor of El País in Spain. And, you know, Franco had gone, there was a democratic government, was trying to get going. And there was a coup, and army colonels came in. You lot are now the assembly of the Spanish government. This is Madrid, and you're all cowering before the pistols of the policemen with their funny hats. Seriously, the radio's shut down, everything shuts down. However, Jean-Louis Sebrian, editing El País, was determined to get out a printed edition of the paper despite the tanks on the streets. And he succeeded in getting it printed. And there's this wonderful moment when El País, this tabloid paper, is speaking up for democracy. And the guy who's led the revolution is there on the platform, and somebody comes up and gives him a copy of El País. Now just imagine if he was reading a Twitter message, it would have had no effect. But all the deputies saw this man reading El País, which was supposed to be dead. It wasn't a digital message, it was a product of old-fashioned print. But the point about it is that that was a manifestation, a physical manifestation of the effect that the press can have on freedom generally. And so I want to just say this. That's a story from the past. But if you go back even further, there's the famous story of the Pericles funeral oration. And what he said was the whole earth is the sepulchre of famous men and what they leave behind for others to inherit and become part of their lives. And those of you in the audience today who have won prizes or supported it and done the hard work of investigative journalism of the kind that Spotlight did, and that many of you have done, you are actually making the world a better place, not just for now, but for generations to come. Thank you very much.